Having car problems? Well, with Rhoda, getting them fixed is as easy as ordering takeout. They'll come pick up your car for free, do any repair or maintenance needed, and return it right to your driveway. They'll even give you a complimentary video inspection of your car so you can see what needs to be done. Perfect for those of us that maybe aren't so car savvy. Book your appointment online at roda.com. And lucky for you, CityCast listeners get a 20% discount on any service for up to $100 off. Just use the code CityCast20.
Today on CityCast DC, we are talking about the last aftershocks, or at least we hope they're the last aftershocks, from a scandal in the mayor's office. We're also going to talk about a Maryland race that just might be interesting, and about whether or not the Nats are actually kind of for sale after all. I'm joined by Channel 4's Mark Segraves and CityCast's own Julia Caron. Today is Friday, May 17th. I'm Michael Schaefer, and here's what DC is talking about. Hey, guys.
Hey, how you doing, Mike?
Hey, Mike.
Hey, thank you for being here. All right, so Mark, you broke some news in the past week about the settlement with these women who had accused John Falcicchio, the mayor's former chief of staff and longtime closest political aide, of sexual misconduct. He last year famously left the mayor's office. There's been this whole thing where the DC council wanted an outside investigation. The mayor resisted this. Eventually they got one. Law firm has turned in their work product, but it's not being shared with the general public. Can you explain the sort of what's going on now with this?
Yeah, I can. I'll tell you that for me, the headline of this is this episode with former Deputy Mayor Falcicchio has now cost DC taxpayers more than $1 million between the settlement and the cost of this investigation. And as you point out, we are still waiting. The public is still waiting to see the results of that investigation that Arnold and Porter, the private law firm, was paid $750,000 to complete.
They got more than the victims did.
I know.
Absolutely. Yes. Now, I will say the final bill is not in from Arnold and Porter, and it may come in a little bit under the 750 number, but we'll have to wait and see on that. But I did break the story that they had reached a settlement. The settlement was actually reached months ago, early in 2024, and the total dollar figure for that is more than $500,000 between the money that will go to complainant number one, the first woman who came forward, and attorney's fees. Also, both women were allowed to keep their salaries and their benefits for an undetermined length of time. We don't know if they're still collecting those paychecks and benefits. We do know they're not going to work anymore and haven't been going to work for some time. So that was the settlement. The second woman, while she was allowed to keep benefits and pay, did not receive any type of a payout, as did the first woman.
Do you have a sense of where that settlement lines up with of what you might expect in the private sector or some other government office where this kind of thing happened?
I know that both of the complainants from my sources tell me that they asked for much more money than that. Into the seven figures is what they were actually seeking. And so, again, the one woman didn't get anything monetarily in a settlement in a lump sum. The other woman, we believe, got around $400,000 for her settlement. About $125,000 went to legal fees. A lot of sources inside the government look at it as a good deal, that it could have been much, much worse, a much higher payout. But then again, you look down the hall at the council spending $750,000 on this report. So Councilmember Brianne Nadeau has said publicly that she intends to release the report. She is looking to the Inspector General's office, who, by the way, released this report it was such cliche government move to release this at 5 o'clock. They didn't actually even release it, but they dropped it 5 o'clock on a Friday.
Yep.
They hand delivered it. They knew reporters were asking about it. They knew people knew about it. So rather than sending out electronic copies, they literally just sent everyone a hand-delivered hard copy to diminish the possibility that it would be shared widely.
What do we know about what's in it?
Yeah. So is there anything new that we didn't know before that's in this report?
So there is some new stuff in there. It is certainly not earth-shattering, or there's no huge smoking gun. They do acknowledge there were 3 other women who had relationships with former Deputy Mayor Falcicchio that crossed the line for government sexual harassment regulations. One of the women was not a DC government employee, and we all very much believe that this is the woman who gave an interview to the city paper, who said she was a government contractor trying to get contracts with the government with Falcicchio, and because she brushed aside his romantic advances, she wasn't able to do business with the government. She was advised to, because she was not a government employee, she couldn't go through the same process as the government employees went through. She was advised how to file a complaint as a citizen and apparently chose not to file any complaint. So that's the one woman who we basically already knew about. There were 2 other women who were mentioned who are government employees. One who rebuffed his advances and then resigned because she felt uncomfortable at work. The other who had a consensual on-again, off-again relationship with Falcicchio and remains working for the DC government. Again, neither of those 2 women chose to file complaints about Falcicchio. And we don't know whether the mayor's lawyers who conducted the internal investigation, whether they interviewed those 2 women or not. It is likely that they did. The report casts a little blame on just about everybody. You know, while it does say the mayor's office of legal counsel acted with integrity and they affirmed their findings, they did fault them. One, they said there was an appearance of conflict of interest, both in that the mayor's office was investigating itself. And for those reasons, they recommended that in the future, some outside entity, another government agency, including possibly law enforcement, do these investigations. That said, they did also find that the mayor and nobody in her office did try to put any pressure or influence on the investigation. So, and then when it comes to Deborah Katz, the attorney for the 2 complainants, finds a little fault with her that she was a little too public in her demand for accountability and pressure on the mayor's office of legal counsel to get the investigation done. So there was a little blame on both sides there. They did say that based on these 3 other women that they interviewed and the first 2 complainants, and now you have a universe of 5 women, that in their words, Falcicchio had a modus operandi of seeking women for romantic encounters at the workplace. But they said there was no evidence that anyone was given promotions or retaliated against. But it also, because people know what's going on in the room, right, that it just created this tension at work, you know, regardless of the fact that he wasn't giving promotions or hiring based on sexual favors. There was still tension in the workplace because of this.
Why not release this report?
Yeah.
I don't, what's the holdup?
So for some reason, the Inspector General marked the report confidential. Now, as you know, we got a copy of the full report. We were the first ones to report on it, its findings. The Washington Post, Paul Schwarzman, also reported on the findings. There is some identifiable information, very little identified. I mean, maybe 1 or 2 sentences that would need to be redacted. And so it'll be very interesting to see, once they do release the report, what they choose to redact. I know Brianne Nadeau put out a scathing press release, and so did Deborah Katz, the attorney for the complainants, about the 2 women still have not seen the report, but press has, and they were upset with that. Again, we expect Councilmember Nadeau to release that report to the public. It will be a redacted version, but by my read, it's about 120 some pages. By my read, there's not much that needs to be redacted. But of course, they want to take every effort to make sure that the women, the 5 women who are mentioned in this, are not identified, because I do agree with Councilmember Nadeau when she says that kind of thing can have a chilling effect on women or others coming forward in the future with cases like this.
Can I just ask one big question? This has sort of bothered me since the beginning of this. I mean, look at Mayor Bowser, mayor of the district, is surely not the first executive to be let down by a close, trusted aide who behaved appallingly. It's, you know, if I was in her shoes, I would be really pissed at him. And yet, from the beginning of this, there was first this stupid kind of butt heads between council and the mayor about whether they should have an outside law firm investigate. Which to me, it's like, of course you should, because no one can investigate themselves. I mean, the baseball can't, the Catholic Church can't, nobody can. And now there's this sort of, oh, should we make this public? Which again is like, it gives the appearance of someone with something to hide. Whether the reasons are noble or not, it just creates this sort of weird air. There's also this thing of, like, is Falcicchio really, out of her inner circle? She was at the same golf event where he was. Not clear what kind of interaction there was. If politically, it wouldn't have been that hard to play it as like, wow, I was really let down by someone I really trusted. I don't know if it stinks because it actually is smelly, or if it stinks because they've gone about this like weird, defensive, secretive thing when they didn't need to do that. But what do you think?
I think you're right, Michael, on both those accounts. And the mayor's office hates when I say this, but so much of the bad press that the mayor's office has gotten since Falcicchio, related to or not related to Falcicchio, is because he's been gone. And a lot of this has been self-inflicted wounds, whether you look at their handling of the district dogs fiasco, whether you look at their handling of her trip to the Masters, or the handling of this investigation. And the common thing between Falcicchio leaving and the Masters is the original press releases from the mayor's office with both of these issues were lacking in substance and were the first things to raise red flags. When Falcicchio left, their statements was just very benign and almost not admitting that, oh, yeah, we knew he did something really, really bad. And then when she went to the Masters, she put out a press release only saying that she'll be traveling to Augusta, Georgia. Didn't even say she was going to the Masters. Of course, we know why she's going to Augusta, Georgia on the weekend of the Masters. So there's just so much stuff that is self-inflicted on all of this that it just leads to, lots and lots of questions.
Welcome to the Flash Finds podcast, the world's fastest podcast where we explore how Facebook can help you with the stuff you're into. I'm your host, Emma Rogue, and today I'm with creator and home decor guru, Julie Souza. Julie, what's your number one tip?
So if you're into home decor, I would suggest looking into Buy Nothing Facebook groups. It's a great way to explore your style, all for free.
Ooh, we love free stuff. Thanks, Julie. See you next time on the Flash Finds podcast, all about discovering the stuff on Facebook you care about. Bye.
So for folks who didn't follow, this week, there was a primary election in Maryland pitting David Trone, who's a congressman, against Angela Also Brooks, who's the county executive of Prince George's County. Trone had a ton of money. For a while, it looked like momentum was on his side. Angela Also Brooks won. And for her victory, she gets to run against the former governor, very popular former Republican governor, Larry Hogan. And the reason this is probably interesting even beyond Maryland is, well, two things. One, the control of the Senate might just ride on this. But two, for people in D.C. who are used to not getting any good political TV spots during campaign season, we may actually get them because Hogan is going to be very well funded. And also Brooks is similarly going to be well funded. It's a super interesting race. Larry Hogan served 2 terms and won quite overwhelmingly in his reelection. Also Brooks would be a historic first Black woman senator. She is the county executive of, I think, the largest, richest Black majority county in the country. Former prosecutor, which is sort of an interesting resume point for a Democrat. I think a lot of people are thinking, well, this is, Hogan's going to win this. This is his first run for governor. He defeated someone who would have been the first Black governor of the state, a congressman from Prince George's County. And he, acquired a moderate reputation while he was governor. I'm not so sure. I mean, this is like, 2014, when Hogan won the first time, it was a terrible year for the Democrats. There was no enthusiasm, nothing. 2018, when he ran for re-election, he had sort of established a distance from Trump, who wasn't on the ballot, and had, battled cancer during his first term and acquired a great deal of sort of sympathy in that. This time, this is going to be a very nationalized election, at least if the Democrats are able to control the narrative. And that's going to make a different environment for Hogan, who has, continued to keep his distance from Trump. And I don't think there's any coming back from that. He's not going to be able to pivot. I was struck that he only got like 60-some% in the Republican primary, running against, fringe candidates, which says to me that the Trump era Republican Party is not all in for him. They may still vote for him on Election Day, but I think it's going to be super interesting. And Mark, as a TV employee, I'm sure you're grateful for it being interesting because those people are going to buy ads in your station.
On behalf of the TV industry, we are grateful for that, obviously. Look, Hogan left office. I believe his approval rating was over 70%.
He's popular.
You're right. He's a popular guy. Angela Alsobrooks, you would think will, really motivate the minority votes in the state. And the things that you're going to hear, Hogan came out of the gate, saying that he supports a women's right to choose, right? So that'll be a big issue as we go into this, both national and state elections, about choice. And then Trump, right? Even though he wants to distance himself from Trump, Trump will be on the ballot, the same ballot that Hogan and Alsobrooks will be on. And so that Alsobrooks has to hope that the anti-Trump vote will also down ballot swing her way. But you're right, this will be an election that will be watched nationally because of the implications that it has for the control of the Senate. And so this is an absolutely huge race. And yes, expect to see a lot more money pour into this media market over the next several months.
I mean, I wonder that one of the things that Republicans will always use against Democrats in the current moment is this sort of, well, you all supported defunding the police, that you all are anti-police, and crime is, people are more conscious of or afraid of crime than they were in previous election cycles. Whether her status as a former prosecutor kind of throws a wrinkle into that dynamic, makes it a little harder to hit her that way.
I think it certainly gives her some legitimacy, a place to stand from, to point to her record. But look, I guarantee you, Hogan's people are tearing through that record, looking for any example of somebody she went soft on, if they're out there, that they can point to that reoffended. Again, it's going to be a really heated contest between these two Maryland politicians, the likes of which we have not seen in a very long time.
And the same way, I think her people are going to be going through, look, there was a pretty credible argument that the media, that all of us went easy on Hogan. He was such a sympathetic character, and that there was some ugly, both some more conservative than his reputation is stuff, as well as some cronyite, he still is a real estate guy stuff that was underexplored. I think that the potential for ugliness is pretty high.
Show up and run the vibe with Bose SoundLink Max portable speaker. Big stereo sound and deep bass gives the party people the music they can feel. Whether you're at a chill hang or an all-out bash, when you drop your playlist, the party is on. Grab-and-go convenience means it's easy to bring the vibe wherever you are, and it's built to withstand any party spills. All you need to do is press play. Bose SoundLink Max speaker. Start the party at bose.com/Spotify speaker.
The Washington Nationals, our hometown baseball team, they were for sale. Then they weren't for sale anymore. But just the other day, Ted Leonsis, owner of the Caps and the Wizards and the Mystics and recent schemer to leave for Virginia unsuccessfully, newly born-again DC lover, says he's still interested in buying them if they're for sale. But are they, Julia?
So the short answer is, for right now, no, they are not for sale. This kind of caused a stir-up because Ted Leonsis went on the Sports Junkies this week. And for him, obviously, owning the Nationals makes a ton of sense, right? He's already a sports owner. He's already invested in the city. He's getting money to redo Capital One Arena, even though he tried to jump ship. But the Nationals are going to cost a lot of money. When the Learners had explored the sale before, in the 2022 season, and we talked about this with Chelsea Janes, the asking price was $2.4 billion, which is what Steve Cohen paid for the Mets in 2020. That's a lot of money. And part of the reason people weren't interested in buying Nationals was they have this weird TV lawsuit conflict with the Orioles and the Mid-Atlantic Sports Network, because the Nats eat into the O's TV area, right? Before the Nationals, you had to watch the Orioles. There's kind of no choice. But Ted has his own TV stuff. Monumental Sports is his network. So it kind of would, kill two birds with one stone, as they say, which would be very interesting.
3 birds, if you count the Orioles.
3 birds, if you count the TV deal, too. Yeah, exactly. It's also interesting because, the O's have a new owner in David Rubenstein. It's possible that, this eventually gets resolved and the Nats are going to sell off. I don't think that's going to happen during the regular season. The Nats are actually weirdly mediocrely good. They're sitting around 500. People thought they were going to be terrible. We'll see if Ted makes, another offer in the future. But he is still interested in baseball. He wants that kind of spring, summer edition. The Mystics already bring that. He's had to move a couple games to Capital One Arena because the crowds have been really, really great. And so for him, it's a continuation of a thing that's done really well for him. So I don't know. I imagine over the next couple of months, this is going to build and we're going to see, maybe the learners insisting that they aren't going to sell. And then they play this like wiffle ball back and forth, ping pong, to be like, you know what? We'll see.
I'm curious, though, where the Orioles feature in all this. Like, as a child of DC in the 70s and 80s, huge Orioles fan. Like, we were all huge Orioles fans. They won the World Series when I was 10. Now we've got Rubenstein, who's, Baltimore native, but a DC guy, as the owner. And I know that there's been some kind of effort to like woo back kind of people who were fans of the Orioles before the Nats to say like, hey, like your team's gone mediocre, our team's really good and exciting and attractive. And Rubenstein's going to start having his fellow Washington plutocrats up in the owner's box. And I'm wondering if that does something to the sports culture that had like pretty happily just ditched the Orioles for the Nats when the Nats came in.
Yeah. So one thing that I think people forget is that David Rubenstein was partnering with Ted Leonsis before when they wanted to buy the Nats before. And so like, I think David Rubenstein got his wish. He got his fancy baseball team. In terms of dynamics, I mean, the Orioles are projected to make the playoffs this year. And so I think the selling point for Rubenstein is, hey, our team is really good. If you want to make a day trip up to Baltimore and go to historic Camden Yards and see the brick and have Maryland crabs and all that fun stuff, right? That is his big selling point, is his team is better.
So here's what I find interesting about this dynamic is that the Caps and Wizards potential move, would Leonsis have had the money to try to buy the team if he was still going over to Virginia and having to put all that money into a development over there? But the bigger question is, if I were Mayor Bowser, I would be on the phone making sure that he doesn't take the Nationals out of D.C. In his interview with me, because his constituents are not D.C. residents and business owners. It's the business. That's his constituency, and that's his prime directive. Yeah. And so, if he gets this team, and I believe the current lease still has about 10 years on it at Nats Park, but could he buy this team and then head back over to Virginia with a baseball team and have the team leave? So if I were Mayor Bowser, I would be on the phone with Leonsis saying, hey, this has now got to be part of this overall deal. We don't want any of our teams leaving or the risk of having to go through this with you 10 years from now in a different team. What else is interesting is that in the terms, which Channel 4 was also the first to report on, the term sheet between Leonsis and the city, one of the provisions that he wants, it still has not been settled by the council and the mayor yet, but one of the terms that he wants is that he wants Monumental to be exempt from any taxes that would benefit another sports franchise coming to Washington, D.C. Well, he owns franchises that currently get benefits from taxes. And if he buys the Nationals, that is the model, the business model for the tax he's trying to be exempt from that would benefit the Commanders, the stadium tax that was implemented to build that Nats Park originally, funded by tax dollars. And so it's a really interesting dynamic. And I really think if I were in Mayor Bowser's office right now, I would be very concerned about this guy getting control of the Washington Nationals without making sure that he's committed to staying in D.C. Now, it would make sense. He would want all of his, like he says, he wants to have an empire right outside his window, everything within walking distance. But it's still another opportunity for Leonsis to move one of our major league teams out of D.C. And that has got to be a concern for the Bowser administration.
You know what doesn't cost $2.4 billion?
Oh, yeah. Here she goes.
Oh, yeah. I had to bring it up. Our membership program. If you like conversations like this, where we have Mark Segraves, who does breaking news all of the time, and you can't get this kind of conversation anywhere else, maybe you should become a member. It's $8 a month, a lot less than $2.4 billion, I might add, and you get ad-free listening and first dibs on our super cool events. Obviously, that's not why you want to do it. You become a member because it's the best way to make sure that this pod stays in your feed forever and doesn't leave like the Caps and the Wizards almost did. So head to membership.citycast.fm and, do the thing. We're right here.
Hey, Mark, thank you so much for being here today.
It's always a thrill. Thanks you both for having me.
And thank you, Julia.
Thanks, Mike.
And that is all for today here on CityCast DC. Our interim executive producers are Julia Karen and Kayla Cote-Stemmerman. Kayla also writes our super informative and fun newsletter, Hey DC. Our interim producer is Ash Durbin, and our hosts are Bridget Todd and me, Michael Schaefer from Politico. Music is by Alex Roldan. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Bye.